So after a couple of viewings of Rogue One, it's only fair that we do our spoiler review.
Yeah, it definitely takes a few viewings, especially when it comes to these movies, because honestly, if we do one right afterwards, we're going to just give it high marks across the board.
Yeah, there's stuff you missed, there's stuff that you didn't realize before, there's stuff that you kind of were like, oh yeah, at first, but then after you're like, oh, you know.
I see an issue there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Rogue One is that the second, third time around, the first half of the movie is very much disconnected versus the second half of the movie. And it's fine. It's just not anywhere near on the level of the second half of the movie. The second half of the movie definitely was full of everything that we love about Star Wars. The first half of the movie,
filler
not so
episode.
Much. Yeah, it felt very not that great of an episode of Rebels versus the second half being one of the best episodes of Rebels I've ever seen. And one thing though that was great about the first half of the episode were essentially the characters.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already had an inkling of all of the relationships between all of the characters at the beginning, almost because of the book Catalyst. Where we got to learn about Galen and Krennic and their relationship together. And so that kind of put us a step ahead, I guess, a little bit, in the sense of watching this movie, because we already kind of know who they were and where they were coming from.
And then going into Cassian Andor and K2SO, showing Cassian Andor totally offing one of his
like right off the bat he kills the guy and you're just like, okay, who is this person?
Beautiful though. I think it was great showing the darkness of a Rebel Alliance soldier and what they need to do.
To show where they need to go.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was a lot of times too where he was like, he had that struggle in his mind as well. Correct. He's like, you've never been here. I was 6 years old when I was in this fight almost.
And then even Chirrut said, you're walking around with your prison, and that whole thing about how the Force moves.
He's like, does he look like a killer?
The Force moves darker around people who are about to kill.
Yeah, and it's because he asked, does he has a face of a killer, which I thought was great. And he's
he has
like,
a face of a friend.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, he's like, no, a face of a friend, and it's like, why? That was awesome, kind of like that interaction right there.
And then Chirrut and Baze, an amazing duo. Love them so much, especially when it came down to them being Guardians of the Whills.
Oh, that was great. Perfect.
So happy that they're bringing in the Journal of the Whills, at least in some form. It was probably Pablo Hidalgo, though, that was like, you guys need to put this in here.
And maybe Alan Dean Foster, too. I mean, he did put that at the beginning of the Force Awakens
as well as the New Hope
the novelization of New Hope as well.
So it's so cool. I hope maybe Snoke is a shaman of the Whills, but that's another conversation.
Yeah,
it would be great.
Totally different, and we'll probably get to that when Episode 8 gets closer and we figure out more.
Jyn Erso, I love Jyn Erso, but I wish I loved Jyn Erso more. I just felt like there needed to be more of a badass to her, like somebody who
but I also like that she was just kind of winging it. She didn't know exactly what she wanted to do or who she was.
Yeah, but if
she kind of was just there, and she was like after her dad died.
But that took a long time to get to.
Yeah, but after she kind of was like, I think this is what I need to do to honor my dad and my family, my mom, and like.
I just kind of wish they focused a little bit more on trust the Force, because after that the necklace never came into conversation. I mean, there is times where she was
like looking at the Kyber crystal. That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
But other than that, the visual was amazing. It was the graphics, the way they shot things, the choreography, the size and the scale that they show of the ships and the Death Star. I mean, it definitely is daunting when you see this Death Star.
Especially on the big screen.
Yeah, it's been such a long time since we've seen the Death Star for the first time.
Yeah.
And then seeing it this way definitely added a more... it's a huge threat, and yet we know what happens to it, but it is a huge threat in this movie. The way they portray the scenes of taking out Jeddah and taking out Scarif. I mean, very beautifully done too.
It's so crazy, like when we get onto the Death Star too. I mean, when you see Krennic come, and then there's sort of familiar face or voice, and it's Tarkin, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, this is cool. I didn't know the extent of what they were going to show. Like, I thought that when he walks up to the glass and you saw the reflection in the thing, I was like, okay, well, that's cool, that's it. And then he turns around and you actually see his full face. You're just like, all right. So they did try. Like,
It wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect at all. You definitely can tell compared to next to somebody who was actually really there, essentially. Yeah. But I thought that they did a very good job.
He needed to be there.
Yes.
Absolutely needed to be
exactly. There. And I thought that they did a very good job for somebody who's been dead for like 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Years? It's been a while. But
was it 94?
The technology has definitely kept up from Tron, which they did that for someone who was alive.
He was no clue, that's for sure.
To somebody, I thought it was pretty well done. I know that you kind of had an issue because of his eyes.
Yeah, the dead giveaway was the eyes. I don't know what it is and why they feel the need that the pupils actually need to focus here and here and here and here. Like, it just does not move fluently.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to stare at somebody, just stare. It's like they wanted to give him life, so they moved him around.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
like when he's thinking, it's like looking down here, and then to me, I was like, it doesn't seem natural. And his mouth as well didn't, to me.
The only thing I was looking at was his freaking cheekbones. I was like,
and I tried that the second time. I tried that the second time. I looked over here, or I looked at Krennic instead. I looked off screen. I was like, yeah, it's him. I had to just keep convincing myself it was. But yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a shot.
Yeah.
And then showing the little tips of the hat as well, like on Jeddah when we ran into the "I don't like you either" guy. I know they have names, but I love Family Guy's interpretation of it. But when it's these little tips of the hat show up throughout the movie, I mean, it's well done. It doesn't feel forced at all.
Right. It's kind of just there, and it just flows. They didn't dwell on it too much.
Yep. And
what they did.
Many of the choreography that came later in the movie, especially on Scarif, was so beautifully done.
The whole scenes with all of them fighting the Empire versus the rebels that went onto Scarif, it was great. I loved it.
And then seeing the demise of each one of the members of this rogue team, just so beautiful. The way K2SO.
My favorite was K2SO because the part that really got me too was when she hands him the blaster and she's like, "You wanted one, right?" And then just Alec Tuden like his motion captured for a robot. It was just like he was very excited, or like not excited, like I don't know what the word would be. Very honored.
Yeah, honored to take this last stand, which he did very well. Held off those freaking stormtroopers. Took out so many of them before they finally took him out.
Yeah, I was so sad when he's like, "And I'm unlocking it now."
And then Bodhi as well. I loved Bodhi's thing in the end. His little Doc Brown moment with the cable.
Oh yeah,
it's wrapped
exactly
around
what I remember.
the generator.
Like, oh no.
I know. And then eventually when he gets into the ship and he flips it on and says, "You guys need to take out that shield." And to me that reminded me so much of Saving Private Ryan with the sniper when he's looking down from the clock tower, the bell tower, and he's just boom, taking one, and then looks over and then you just see the tank and the barrel. And he's looking at the tank and he puts the gun down and he's like, "Get that!" And then it just goes. It's like this guy's with you the entire movie. And then it's just clink, clink, and then it's over. That's it. He's gone. And it was heartbreaking to me. Bodhi and K2SO, Chirrut and Baze went out like badasses, I think.
Sure did.
I didn't feel so sad, even though Baze ruined it at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, but Baze, yeah, he did. But even then, it still kind of felt like heartbreaking to, by the way, because we didn't know how he was going to go out. Right. We just know that he was going to go out. And we figured anyways, it would only be right if all of them kind of went out to get these plans to the rebels. Like, I feel like that was the only way that they should have ended.
It was a Suicide Squad for sure. In the world of Star Wars, they were not coming out of this, and I'm glad they did do it that way. I do have an issue with Jyn Erso though, spilling all the plans to Krennic right before they succeed, because at that point she was unarmed, he was armed. They were on a catwalk that was falling apart, and the shield was still shut. And she's like, "We're doing this. The Death Star has a flaw. You can't get this out, and blah, 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 blah. You're going to fail." And he's like, "All your ships will be destroyed. You're not opening the shield. And you're going to
go down with the rebellion."
Yeah, and to me, I was like, whoa, she totally pulled like a James Bond villain flippicle. I mean, it was kind of silly at that point.
Yeah, and there's also the thing, I know this is kind of just like scratching, like, like little
nitpicking. That's what we're here for.
It's a little nitpick, of course, but mine was the fact that, like, if you knew that they were getting these plans, why didn't you just take out your tower?
Yeah, why didn't you just blow up the tower in the first place? And then the other nitpick was, why were you trying to kill Galen Erso after the fact that the Death Star was already built and successfully blowing up places?
Now that we talk about it right now, it kind of reminds me of the way that Tarkin was in A New Hope, where he's like,
evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances.
Evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances.
Yes, that kind of reminds me of that. Like, the Empire is very cocky in their way, and so that's probably, I'm gonna go with that as why he didn't blow up his thing.
Okay, why he didn't blow up that? But why did the rebels want to kill Galen instead of bringing him in for questioning or interrogating and figuring out a way to take out the Death Star?
Because they wanted to kill him.
I mean, when in World War II, when the missile creators built the missiles, they took those guys and hit them in Arizona and ended up helping build the space program.
Yeah, but that didn't do too well with S.H.I.E.L.D. that did it.
I guess that's true. But either way, seeing this final battle, I mean, it was so well shot. One of the big, obviously, things that occurred in this battle, because obviously to us it's the best part of the entire movie, was that last 30 minutes.
Oh, good.
But
okay.
Y-Wings actually using the bombs. Yeah. Y-Wings actually being Y-Wing bombers.
Blockade runners?
The Hammerhead cruiser.
Yes.
The Hammerhead cruiser actually using
awesome.
its head of its ship to actually do stuff and hit things. That was freaking awesome how it pushed that Star Destroyer into the
other
shield.
One. It was great.
Into the Spaceballs shield.
Cool, because he pushed that Star Destroyer into the other Star Destroyer, which fell, and it was awesome.
The one guy that kind of looked like Bill Nye, where he's just like, put the shields up, and it's just like cuts the freaking head off of the freaking Star Destroyer, which was beautifully done.
Yeah.
And then Admiral Raddus, I thought Admiral Raddus was a badass. Now I could see how they modeled him after Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, he was definitely a badass.
Oh, yeah.
He was so cool.
And I loved the fact that they had Gold Leader and Red Leader in there. And they actually used footage from
beautiful. Like, I was
New Hope, because
freaking out.
I was watching it too. I was like, oh my god, that's like footage. It was like you could tell. I mean, we could tell that it was.
But I was so happy he was there.
But it was awesome.
Freaking Gold Leader reading his script off of his legs, because that's what he did in the original New Hope, because he couldn't remember his lines out of order. But yeah, for me too, one of the best shots for me was when Blue Leader, which throwback to old school Star Wars, Blue Leader, Blue 5. Oh yeah, and you also see Red 5 get taken out too. He's where are you going, Red 5? And he's like, and he blows up. Now we know where Luke got Red 5 from. But Blue Leader, when Blue Leader is on the surface and he's taking ships out, and they hit his engine, and he starts kind of like in New Hope. There's a scene where the camera is following him and it pans out and you see it crash into the surface on the beach. Fire comes up and the camera pans down and it starts following the rebel troopers on the ground, going up against the AT-ATs and the other soldiers. Like the fluency and the AT-ACTs as well, which I was hoping to show us the benefit of having that big open thing inside the AT-ACT.
Yeah, they showed the benefit that it would.
Yeah, it splits down the middle, but I was like, okay, well, it has a cargo transport of some sort. What's in the middle of it? Like, I got to read the book, I guess. But yeah, those shots were so beautifully done for not having any transitions built in. But it granted, the music would have made it so much better had they utilized any of the music from before. Again, I said this, but it felt like Michael Giacchino was totally avoiding copyright strike when he made this movie. You can't do more than 10 seconds of John Williams music or I'm going to get tagged. But it just was lacking from these scenes especially, and especially when they finally get those plans uploaded and up and out. And
then it freaking goes
amazing
off. Okay, so before we get into that part, I do want to talk about the fact that it was kind of a blow to the face, and I didn't realize it the first I watched it. He did, and I caught it the second time, is where the Death Star comes out of hyperspace, and it's like, fire when ready, and it fires on the planet, and it hits Krennic.
poetic. So poetic. I think that was the most poetic thing ever, was him looking up at the freaking Death Star, and then they do, again, the scenes with the perfect, identical, matching scenes of the... Beautiful, and then the beam just cuts straight through the tower and takes out Krennic.
And then they all go out as deep impacts when they're on the beach and they're hugging each other. But
that was very deep impact with Taya Leone and her dad. Yep. But no, when Raditz is like, "May the Force be with you," and then they're all like, "Jump to hyperspeed, we got it." And
and then the freaking Star Destroyer.
The freaking Vader Star Destroyer comes in, and the transport just slams right into it. Like, that is where everything just became 11. Went to 11. And
then you see them, like, now we're on the Rebel ship, and you see them get the plans, and he has it in his hand, and they're like getting all that, and then all of a sudden, oh my god,
fantasy come true, finally,
freaking
blown away. That's what we wanted.
Vader comes out. Red, like, you don't see Vader at all because of all the smoke and stuff, and then all of a sudden you see his freaking lightsaber, and then you see him, you're like, and you can see it in
the chorus in the background, the choir screaming in the background, and
like, to be honest though, it would be so perfect, like the Duel of Fates.
No Duel of Fates. You needed the Imperial March. You needed the Imperial March with that choir, and if you, not just any Imperial March, the scene in Empire Strikes Back when they do the carbon freezing on Han Solo, and it's like boom 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 like just taking everyone out, bringing the guy up to the ceiling,
walking past him, and then freaking taking him out
right back through him, and then
he's freaking, the guy's like, "Here, take it," and then he opens the door with him, and then
the door slides open, and he's still attached to it. Oh, so beautiful. The panic, the scrambling of getting that disc to.
Yes.
The Tantive 4, like getting it to Leia.
Oh my god, and the whole time too, I was
tripping
like, are
and
they
falling
going
over
I know, I was
each
like,
other.
Are they gonna give it to him? Like, to the point where, like, you don't know if they're, like, we obviously know that they're gonna give the plans to them, but like in this moment you're
we
like,
knew the Titanic was gonna sink too, and we were still going crazy.
That's true, exactly, and you're just like, oh my god, are they gonna get the plans to her in time?
Blast off!
And then
when he goes and closes the door.
And they close the door, and then they're out
and
of
then
there.
you hear from the freaking opening of New Hope on the ship.
Yes. And then he like can't, you see, and then it opens the door and you see Leia there, and I didn't think that they were gonna show her face. I thought they were just gonna hand it to her, and then when she turns around, you're like, well, okay.
She seemed a little too happy for me for being in the moment, because they were about to get killed.
It's hope.
It was great, and that was it. That's all we needed. It was amazing seeing the battle, seeing the ghosts in there from Rebels too, multiple times cut across the screen. It was amazing. Seeing the placement of the cockpit too on the cruisers when they were, it kind of looked like he was at the bottom of the medical frigate, which was kind of weird with the glass bottom. I mean, we've always seen those cockpits, but actually seeing the camera fly around, and then when they were hitting it, and he's talking about the shields and how they're down to 50%, but you get to kind of see where they are and how the ships are targeting the cockpit to kind of take them out. Like, just the strategic placement of these dogfights, I thought, was just amazingly well done.
And then again, missed opportunity with the music. Like, the whole time, I just wanted to listen to the Battle of Endor music at that scene when they're in the space and flying, and like the shots in that scene. Like, it would have been perfect with Part 1 of Battle of Endor Part 1.
But I'd have to say, though, after all of this, I would give Rogue One still a 4.0 out of 5.
Yeah, I still give it a 4.5 out of 5 because also they didn't have the traditional transitions with Star Wars normally does, like the side swipes and the ups and downs. It was just kind of like different, like it was just cuts basically.
And the lack of the crawl definitely was incredibly jarring to us. I mean, if you were gonna do something, even Rebels does better cold opens. They'll do their whole thing and then...
Yeah, and then like as soon as the title sequence came up for Rogue One, and then the music, like it just did not.
It was too cheery and upbeat, and it just didn't feel like Star Wars.
It didn't feel like Star Wars either, and it just didn't feel like again, they should have totally just been like along in a galaxy far, far away, and then boom, like the music for Star Wars, and you see Star Wars, and then you see it say Rogue One, and then go into it. It just, I don't know, it just didn't, that part.
Giacchino trying to reinvent the Imperial March with the Imperial Suite or whatever it is on the CD. It's just, I understand if you're going to make a theme for Krennic, you're going to make a theme for the team, you're going to make a theme for any new characters. 100% for it.
Right.
But when you show the Rebel Alliance show up, or Darth Vader, other than the one scene at the castle when he showed up on Mustafar, amazing. But I mean, come on, it needed to be more present throughout, and it just was not, and that hurt quite a bit. And in fact, I would have given it a lower score for the first half of the movie being fairly slow to the point where I'll wait till Blu-ray to see it again. But the first half knocked it down.
I'll go see it another time.
And then the second half of it, amazing,
yeah, you definitely have to see that in
incredible.
Theaters.
And I would just want to go watch that whole last half of the movie over and over and over again. So
yeah,
that's what keeps it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we'll probably go see the movie again in theaters.
I personally feel like I'm kind of done. I don't.
I could go see it again.
I'll sneak in and I'll go buy a ticket for La La Land, watch La La Land, and then go sneak in and watch the second half of Rogue One.
You just become one of the people who clean out.
I was one of those people, and it's the best job in the world because I learned many endings to many movies. You know how many times I saw the end of Real Steel? That's a whole nother story. People's Champion sounds pretty good to me. But thank you guys.
Yes, thank you again for sticking around and watching our spoiler review of Rogue One.
Yep, and we have 1 year to go before we see
Episode 8.
And we always appreciate it, so like us, subscribe.
And do the thing on our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram.
And you can check out any of our other videos that we did for Rogue One. I mean, there was a heck of a lot of trailers that came out in the last couple weeks. The Seagulls, rockin' and rollin'. Seagulls Stop It Now from Bad Lip Reading. If you haven't checked that one out, it's pretty awesome, so you should look at that as well.
Yes.
But until next time, now it's time to say goodbye. Bye.
Wait, remember in the trailer reaction we did, and you said that Galen was going to be the reason why they had that flaw for the Death Star?
Of course I remember. Remember? What if he built the exhaust port? What if he built the kill switch into the Death Star, and that is how there is a vulnerability?
What a twist!